What's up? It's Josh at home at 30. So you want to know if you should pay more to attend an elite college versus going to a state school or just a good school. I don't know where exactly you draw the line on elite school versus non-elite school, but let's just say I paid $170,000 for an undergraduate and master's degree at a top 25 university in the US. All right, it was top 25 at the time. Now it's tied for 27th, but cut me some slack, all right? You get the picture? So I'm obviously not a skull and bones guy, but I understand the dynamics at play, and making the wrong decision can really get you off track with what you want to do in your career. So my answer, is it worth paying more to attend an elite college? It depends. Choosing whether an elite college is really worth the extra money comes down to these three things. Number one, your career aspirations. Number two, the cost versus the benefit. And number three, reasonable alternatives. Let's start with number one. What are your career aspirations? Most people don't know what they want to do for the rest of their life when they're in high school. And if you're in that boat, nothing to be ashamed of. Most people are in that boat. I was definitely in that boat. So it's perfectly normal to feel that way. At the same time, it's really important for you to figure out whether or not you'll be pursuing a really, really competitive career field or not. As a little hint, the high-paying jobs are typically the more competitive ones. People like making money, so you know what I mean? Now you might be saying, hey Josh, why is this important? It's important because if you're pursuing an extremely competitive industry, you'll need every advantage you can get. An example of a high competition industry would be investment banking jobs. Investment banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan recruit almost exclusively at elite universities, and they typically hire people that were interns while doing their undergraduate studies. The people hired as analysts right out of college know the business, they know what they want to do, and they probably know a couple people at the company already. By the way, these first-year analysts can expect to make anywhere between $75,000 and $150,000 per year on the job right out of school. Not bad. I'd take that. Now let's look at the other side of the spectrum. A low competition industry would be becoming a public school teacher. All right, now I know you can't just roll out of bed and become a public school teacher, but you don't need to go to Yale to teach elementary school kids in Connecticut. It's more important to get a solid education, get your certification, and keep your debt to a minimum. I don't know if you know this, but school teachers don't make a lot of money. Professors in college, yeah, that's another story. But it's more education, you need to get your master's, etc., etc. That's the way to do it too. Just do the same PowerPoint over and over, read a couple papers, grade some papers and tests. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, be a college professor. But public school teachers don't make a lot of money. I remember hearing a story about a student who went to the University of Michigan, piled up something like $200,000 in student loans, became a public school teacher and was wondering why she couldn't pay her student loans back. It's like, come on, don't do that. And now it's not just teaching either. The same thing goes for a lot of professions out there. For example, I got into commercial insurance. Did I need to go to Wake Forest to get into that industry? No. Was it a nice little touch? Did it help spark conversation? Sure. But I paid a lot more for that education than I needed to get into the industry. And at this point, once you're in the industry and you're doing a good job, it doesn't really matter anyways. Really, at the end of the day, the better school on your degree, the more confidence people will have that you're basically a capable human being. But the further along you get in your career, the less of an impact it has. So unless you're pursuing an extremely competitive field, a good, solid, affordable school should do the trick. Now let's talk about cost versus benefit. An important thing to think about is what your financial situation will be when you graduate and get that job that you're after. Raise your hand if you want to get a great job, move out of your parents' house, get a really cool apartment, and crush life. Because I had about $170,000 worth of debt, I lived with my parents for about 4 years. Loved seeing them. I rather would have visited. Wasn't that cool. Didn't really enjoy it that much. But at the end of the day, scared money doesn't make any money. So if you know you want to be a baller, you're willing to pay a little extra to go the extra mile for that program and that experience that'll help you land a lucrative job, go ahead and do it. It might be worth going to the more expensive school with the better program that will set you up for long-term success. And this isn't just about what you make your first year coming out of college. It's about the entire trajectory over the course of your career in that industry. Third-year associates at investment banks make $250,000 or more. Public school teachers make less than that. So if you're joining an industry with limited earning potential, don't get into a debt that'll saddle you for the rest of your life, because it does happen. For example, I think a student paying $250,000 to become a dentist is justified by the $150,000 starting salary they'll have. They're paying an upfront cost now, but they're getting a much higher initial salary with a much larger trajectory than normal over the course of their career. Here's a good way to find out the situation you're getting yourself into financially once you graduate. First, you want to find a student loan calculator and plug in some different loan amounts at different schools and find out what the minimum payments will be. Next, find the average starting salary for a job you'd like to do in a city you'd like to live in, subtract the taxes, and see what's left. If you don't have a good buffer between your salary minus taxes and your minimum payments for those loans, it's probably a good idea to go to a cheaper school. Or you can just go ahead and get way more scholarships, which probably would have been a great idea in the first place. Or you can be like the cool kids and live with your parents for a while. Lastly, you need to think about your reasonable alternatives. Now I'll make this short and sweet. Between two comparable schools, always go with the cheaper option if you don't have to sacrifice much in terms of education or the quality of the program, on-campus recruitment opportunities, and networking potential. A sales job can be lucrative, but do you need that Ivy League degree to get in an industry and become successful? I don't think so. Now, I will say the one thing that helps these elite colleges really stand out is the network. They typically have very powerful alumni networks with alumni that are more than happy to help students get ahead in their careers and give them a hand up. And you'll also meet other students on campus who have influential friends, parents, or relatives that can help connect you and help you improve. So should you pay more to go to an elite school? Unless you want to master a trade, the higher the salary and the career trajectory, the more competitive the job search will be. Joining the best possible program will only increase your odds of getting your foot in the door, and for the really competitive fields, it might be your only chance. Now, this video may sound like a lot of upfront work, but I don't have to tell you that you'd be surprised what you can find on the internet, so just do your research before you make any decisions related to which college you're going to attend. So, when you're debating whether an elite college is worth the extra money, remember these three things: your career aspirations, cost versus benefit, and the reasonable alternatives. Hey, cheer up. It's an exciting time in your life. Don't forget to enjoy yourself. Questions in the comments below, and subscribe for related content.